Opportunity. With the right opportunities, our full potential is within grasp. In life, opportunity can mean the difference between mediocrity and success. Sometimes all we need is a chance. Natale Mercedes thinks about opportunity every day. He's the treasurer of the Ciudad del Cielo, Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Dominican Republic, and the father of a 3-year-old.
Describo a mi familia como un regalo del cielo. Donde vivo es el lugar donde Dios me permitió estar con algún propósito.
His son's young age doesn't prevent Natale from worrying about his future. If he gets the opportunity to have a good education, his son could have a great career and thrive. Without it, he may never have the chance to pursue higher education and the jobs and life that come with it.
Las opciones de educación en el barrio son pocas. Tenemos 2 centros educativos de nivel primario y solamente tenemos uno de nivel medio. En la comunidad adventista, Los Casabes, estábamos un poco preocupados, especialmente yo, porque decíamos, ¿dónde vamos a poner nuestros niños? ¿Dónde estudiarán? ¿Dónde tendrán ese pan de la enseñanza espiritual?
It's a concern shared by many Adventist members in the Ciudad del Cielo community. There are around 80 Adventist churches in the area, but no Adventist school.
Esta zona necesita la Escuela Ciudad del Cielo porque yo sé que será un centro de bendición para ella, no solamente a nivel educativo, sino también espiritual, porque será un centro educativo que además de enseñar ciencias, también enseñará de Dios.
The need for an Adventist school was also felt by the president of the Adventist Church in Southeast Dominican Republic, Darrell.
He said there's 80 churches in this area around Ciudad del Cielo that has no access to Christian education. Well, that's pretty bad. So that attracted my attention, at least. He said, we're starting to buy property and we don't have any money. I have a dream, is what he said. He said, I want to see a school where we can meet the needs of all these churches in this area. And so it kind of started from there, and we started taking a look. We didn't commit at first. We came here. I mean, it was like a garbage dump on this site over here. The property was very undulated.
After weighing all the factors, Maranatha agreed to take on the challenge of constructing an Adventist campus that would not only include a large school building to house 1st through 6th grades, but also a secure early childhood education center and a large church.
Y cuando nos dimos cuenta de que iban a construir un colegio adventista, para nosotros fue de gran gozo, de gran alegría. E incluso dije, ese será el primer centro donde mi hijo estudiará. Eso es lo que yo necesito, lo que yo quiero.
In 2022, Maranatha's Vice President of Construction, Darrell visited the property and together with President Don Noble began to lay out the campus.
Darrell, his involvement here at the beginning, because he walked this property early on when we came here. I actually was going to put the school up here and the church down there when you're looking at the property, but he was right. We did it the other way. He spent an immense amount of time planning for this project. He read all the manuals from the government on what you have to do to have a school like this, and made sure that we were not going to step on anybody's toes, or that we would do it right legally and all that.
This particular project is unique for Maranatha because it's centered in an urban area where the people that are going to be coming to school here, the families that are going to send their kids here, are at a higher socioeconomic level than some of the schools that we're building, say in Africa, India. And there's also more regulations here. There's more requirements by the government for upgraded environment. And so the buildings that we would need to build were a little different than what we have been building in the past. And we were aware about that from the beginning.
Shortly after work started on the project, Darrell unexpectedly passed away. The news shook the organization around the globe, including many of the staff Darrell mentored for decades.
Él trabajaba con nosotros, hombro a hombro. Él no estuvo nunca como el jefe que era. Él venía y se ponía a trabajar con nosotros. Si estábamos bajando herramienta, él se subía y nos daba la herramienta. Él era el jefe, pero trabajaba igual que nosotros, como si fuera un trabajador. Eso nos motivaba a nosotros, o en este caso a mí, siempre me motivó a trabajar duro porque él nos inculcaba que no trabajábamos para alguien, trabajábamos para Dios. Así mira.
Aprendimos mucho de él. Fue un gran líder y ahora que no está con nosotros, siento que aún está con nosotros. En lo personal fue muy especial para mí. Aprendí mucho y aparte de trabajo, de algo material, muchos valores.
Darrell was a mentor to them. He was a father figure to many of them. He was a teacher, confidant. He was somebody that I think influenced them in their spiritual walk in a lot of ways. He also brought many of them from a laborer up to a supervisor to people that are leading our projects in countries around the world, and he taught them how to do all that.
Gabriella Hardy was married to Darrell for 33 years and watched his mentorship firsthand. She also knows each structure the team built wasn't just a building, it was an act of worship.
Fue por eso que formó un grupo de trabajadores que tienen la misma actitud de trabajar. Ellos saben que hay que hacer las cosas bien hechas porque no solo se están haciendo para Maranatha. Para Darrell, Maranatha no era un simple trabajo, era un ministerio y era un estilo de vida que logró transmitir a las siguientes generaciones, a sus trabajadores. Fue tan cercana su relación que iba más allá del trabajo. Se preocupaba de sus familias, conocía a las familias.
I do want to take a few minutes to introduce some of the workers that really have made it happen. They're really the ones that made this happen.
Es más especial el saber que va a ser una iglesia, o en este caso todo el campus es en memoria de él, pues lo hacemos con mucho más entusiasmo y de corazón. Aparte de que fue un jefe, yo lo veo como líder, como un segundo padre.
I think this was a really special project for them and something that they were really happy to be a part of, but also something that they felt a little extra, pressure's not the right word, but a little extra responsibility, because they wanted to make sure that this building was exactly as good as it would have been had Darrell been involved in it and in the middle of it. And so they felt like this is their opportunity to honor him.
The guys that really built Ciudad del Cielo are guys that he trained. He trained them in quality. He trained them in hard work. He trained them to not just the job had to be done, and it had to be done right, and had to be done on time. And those are the guys that are the leaders here on the team now. In fact, in many places in the world, they're still Darrell's trainees. And I'll tell you what, that's part of why these guys will do anything in terms of working. They work overtime. They want to do whatever it takes because they want to make sure that what they're doing is up to the standard of the guy that they admired so much, which was Darrell.
God is love. His universe is constructed with love.
As the Ciudad del Cielo campus took shape and the community began to notice, excitement started to build, observed at a neighborhood event at the construction site.
And I says, how many of you here plan to send your kids to this school? And like hundreds of people. Said, yes, absolutely, I'm going to send my kids to that school.
3-4 times a day, a car stops, parents get out and say, how can we send our kids here? There's a big need here.
When we come back, how Darrell Hardy took an opportunity with Maranatha and why Maranatha decided to dedicate the Ciudad del Cielo campus to his memory.
Exactly, and the other thing, getting rid of that, you'd have a full width of the lot.
The pastor said they've gotten as far as they can, they just can't seem to go any farther. That's why the one-day church is very important to them. Right?
Yeah. We're going to do basically today, spend some time measuring the physical measurements on the 4 sides.
Darrell Hardy spent 35 years constructing Maranatha buildings all over the world, but his path to the organization was unique.
He went to a series of meetings in northern Michigan where he lived and was baptized, became an Adventist. He was a professional chef, and you wouldn't think a professional chef would make a good construction guy. But you stop and think about it. He would put out banquets for 1,000 people or more. Everything has got to hit at just the right time. You got to plan this, order this, put it out, work with staff, whatever else. And that's a lot of what you do in the construction world. It's a lot of planning. It's order the right stuff, have it there at the right time, put your people to work the right way. And he did that in the both in the food industry and then in construction.
Darrell's first experience with Maranatha was as a volunteer in Mexico.
So when he went down to go on a couple of projects, just to go on projects, he wanted to do something for God. It really worked for him. And he said, hey, can I stay here for a little bit longer? This was in Mexico City, actually. And we were dealing with an old hospital that the church had there, and he slept in our old room in this hospital. I can remember climbing up the stairs, and he just put an old mattress in there, and we didn't pay him anything. After a couple months, I said, Darrell, you got to live. So we paid him $100 a month. He was well paid. He just wanted to be of service. He could see the value. He could see the lighting up, if you will, of the eyes of the people when they get a new church. It's something that so many people don't understand. They take it for granted there's a place to go to church. You don't think about the church. When you don't have that and you pray for 30 years for it, and then you, Darrell, can be part of the answer to that, that's exciting. And it really triggered something for him. And he committed his life to it.
It was in Mexico that Darrell met his wife, Gabriela. They started a life together, dedicated to the work of Maranatha. Their first assignment as a family was in the Dominican Republic for Maranatha's groundbreaking project in 1992, where 25 churches were built in 70 days.
Santo Domingo 92. Entonces vinimos y estuvimos durante todo el tiempo, desde que inició hasta que terminó el proyecto. Y lo más chistoso es que en ese entonces Darrell no vino encargado de construcción, sino vino como el cocinero para todo el proyecto. Primer proyecto como familia al que pudimos asistir juntos.
The image I have of my dad is just a Maranatha guy. Any chance he had, it was either he was working on Maranatha things, working, being the construction and, figuring out issues that were going on, or just emailing back and forth, plans, everything.
I remember being a little kid, and we would do road trips of several days, staying out in the outskirts of town or out in the boonies, just going to visit sites, going to see and supervise some of the construction areas. So he was very much the Maranatha guy, very much the boss that was involved in and not just directing from up top.
Because of Darrell's decades of service to Maranatha, Don Noble decided to dedicate the entire Ciudad del Cielo campus to the memory of Darrell Hardy.
The reason that we decided to dedicate it to Darrell was he spent 35 years building schools and churches. And this is kind of the pinnacle of exactly what that is. And it was the last one he worked on. And it's a nice one. He worked hard on it. He used to call me into the corner office and say, hey, let's take a look at this, you know. Maybe we should do this, maybe we should move this here, how about that? And so I know that he was excited about it, just from the enthusiasm I felt from him. And so my thought was, you know, let's dedicate it to him. Remember a guy who built an immense number of churches, schools.
Cuando supimos de este proyecto quisimos venir y participar, no nada más llegar a ver esto ya terminado. Queríamos poner un poquito de nuestro grano de arena.
Personally, growing up in different countries around construction, I remember being a little kid and asking for, you know, pieces of block that were left over and kind of playing while my dad did stuff. So it was important to come to participate in the construction process.
This Ciudad del Cielo campus is comprised of an education and evangelism center, which has 8 classrooms in it, teachers' offices, and bathrooms. And those classrooms are going to house the primary school, grades 1 to 6, plus a computer lab and a science lab. And then the offices of the school will be there, and that will be the center, the primary school center. Then we also have a kindergarten complex that has 5 classrooms, teachers' offices, a teacher's room, and a play area out behind it. So that kindergarten area is going to basically provide an early childhood education complex for them that will basically feed the primary school. So, and that starts, I believe, as young as 3 or 4 years old, goes on up, and they believe that that's going to be super popular here, and it's going to be something that will help to feed kids into the primary school. There's also on this campus a large church, which seats about 400 people, and that has an office for the pastor and a baptistry and bathrooms. And so that particularly will serve the church, who's been meeting in a very small structure on a lot adjacent to this campus.
Adventist church leadership in the Dominican Republic requested a level of finishes that are typically more than what Maranatha does in other parts of the world. Things like a suspended ceiling, tile flooring, air conditioning, state-of-the-art sound system, TV screens, and pews imported from the United States. Even the roofing is insulated to help regulate temperature and muffle noise from tropical downpours.
It's a church that represents God very, very well, I believe, in this community. And it's something that will, I think, be a place where people can bring their neighbors and their friends, and they will have a representative place to worship.
As Dedication Day approached, final preparations were made to showcase this special campus for all to see. Working with Darrell for nearly 35 years, Maranatha's Caleb de la Cruz has attended hundreds of dedications with his friend and mentor.
Para mí todas son especiales, todas son lindas, pero esta en particular tiene mucho significado para mí, porque todo el campus es dedicado en memoria del señor Darrell. Creo que no transcurrió un día durante todo este tiempo, 2 años y medio, que no se haya mencionado su nombre. Por una u otra razón, siempre él estuvo, está y estará presente en todo lo que hagamos, no solamente en el trabajo, en nuestras vidas. Yo sé que cada ladrillo que pusimos, cada varilla que amarramos, representa a todo lo que Él hizo por nosotros.
knowing him as who he was, a very humble person and just very, never brought attention to himself. I would think he would be overwhelmed for sure. I think that just looking around, the colors of the walls, the layout, it just looks so bright and inviting. It almost makes you think of heaven, how that does. I think
On July 26, 2025, Maranatha leaders, volunteers, and donors, along with the Hardy family, helped to dedicate Ciudad del Cielo, or City of Heaven in English. The event was attended by local officials and church leaders throughout the Caribbean, including the president of the Adventist Church for Inter-America.
And then we hope this community, especially the school, will have an impact. But not only the school, also the church. They both can have an impact in the life of our children, but also in the life of the children of the community, even in the life of parents.
With this school and the church also, we praise the name of God because the community and all this area will knew the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Era una promesa de construir este centro educativo, pero ahora nos llena de más alegría, porque lo que era una promesa hoy es una realidad. Al ver las edificaciones, al ver la iglesia, al ver cada esquina de este centro, nos llena de gran alegría. De promesa a realidad es magnífico.
Les decía yo a los trabajadores, Darrell estaría muy orgulloso al ver la calidad de lo que hizo, no porque vaya a ir su nombre en él, no, eso no sería importante, sino porque representa a Dios y representa la calidad con la que Maranatha trabaja. Entonces es un estándar muy alto y creo que será un excelente lugar para llamar la atención a toda la comunidad, a la iglesia, inclusive ha levantado el estándar del mismo Maranatha.
Sé que si él estuviera aquí hoy, se hubiese sentido totalmente satisfecho de ver que este proyecto, donde sus manos fueron colocadas, guiadas por el Espíritu Santo, hoy está siendo un lugar precioso que podrá atraer a muchos para el reino de los cielos. Fue un gran hombre.
Además, no podría ser una mejor manera que en un lugar donde se va a predicar de Dios, en un lugar donde los niños van a recibir la mejor educación en esta tierra, pero se les va a dar una esperanza más allá. Así que no podría haber sido una mejor manera de honrar su nombre. Para nosotros como familia es un honor muy grande. Para Darrell, él era un hombre sencillo, humilde. Creo que se sentiría abrumado de pensar mi nombre ahí, pero el imaginarme que cuando venga y nos reunamos con él en la eternidad y decirle, ¿sabes qué? A través de este campus hubo mucha gente que conoció al Señor. Eso va a ser lo que lo va a hacer más que especial.
They are very proud of the work they have done here.
2 generations from now, no one's really going to know the name Darrell Hardy, but I know the long-lasting legacy is that a lot of kids are going to be educated in the Christian faith, and they're going to come in church. Maybe they bring their parents, bring their family members. The hope is that we start here, but it continues growing and it continues expanding throughout the generations. I think that's been the Maranatha mission, to build buildings, but really to build people and communities within the areas those buildings are in.
So Maranatha is an agent of hope.
One of the greatest impact that I see is when you go in a community or a place and you see the situation, you see the need, and you see a piece of property that, it gets transformed, it's leveled, filled. You see things taking shape. And already, as the building goes up, the buildings are preaching in those communities, in those areas, whether it's a school or church. And to see that change, and seeing people, seeing their fellow members of the church or coming and helping them, and see how that changes them. That is the part that really inspires me and keeps me motivated to be involved.